Hey guys, welcome back. Today's video, we're going to focus on a power shift that is potentially happening in the AI marketplace right now. We know for the last 3 years, this golden triangle you see on your screen right now, this trio of companies of Nvidia, SK Hynix, and TSMC, they have dominated the AI era. These three are the most powerful companies on the planet with everything regarding AI. But in the background right now, there is a massive counteroffensive that is starting to formalize. Last week, we saw AMD and Samsung come together to sign the strategic collaboration on next generation AI memory solutions. It happened on the 18th, as I mentioned. They're calling this the Memorandum of Understanding, and it is a deal or a partnership that has the potential to shake up the entire AI trade. It has the potential to create a power shift in the marketplace. And on the surface, it looks like it's a simple supply agreement. Memory chips, maybe some manufacturing collaboration. But when you really break it down, when you dig below the top level and you look at some of the details, you realize it could be much more than that, because it starts to look a lot less like just a simple partnership. And it starts to begin to look like the early stages of a strategic counterattack, not just against one company, but against the entire ecosystem. Because the real story in AI right now isn't about who builds the fastest GPUs. It's about who controls the system or the ecosystem around it. Today, we're going to break down exactly what this Memorandum of Understanding means for AMD, what it means for Samsung, and what this partnership is that they're building together. Why it matters for us as investors, who it helps the most, which company will it help the most, and most importantly, what could it mean for the next phase of the AI trade? Because we're not just talking about chips. In this video, we're going to talk about potentially breaking up a monopoly that we see in the marketplace right now. Today, we're going to discuss that new partnership, or what I'm calling the AMD Samsung Alliance. Guys, if you haven't done it already, hit like, hit subscribe to the channel. Also, just so you know, I did put some memberships out in the channel. So if you're interested in supporting the channel, supporting me, helping me continue to put out good quality program on this channel, please consider joining as a member. Let's jump in and talk about what happened first and what the problem is in the marketplace right now. We know, if you've been following the AI trade closely, which I know you have if you watch this channel, you've probably noticed this paradox that we're living in right now. We're living in one of the most powerful technology cycles that we've ever seen. AI demand is exploding. Data center spending is accelerating. Companies are deploying capital at a rate that would have been just unrealistic a few years ago. But yet companies are not benefiting equally, because in AI, performance alone isn't enough. Nvidia isn't winning because they have the fastest GPUs. They're winning because they control the environment those GPUs live in. Let me just show you an example of that. Show up a picture, and you can see how Nvidia controls the ecosystem around them. Everything from chips, systems, models, cloud platforms, adoption, networking, and software, and particularly software. That's what makes them the most entrenched, because their software layer, or CUDA, they control that system architecture. And most importantly, they have extremely tight control over memory integration, specifically high bandwidth memory. And you know that high bandwidth memory, it is the bottleneck of AI. We have talked about that on this channel extensively, how this is the most important component right now in all of AI. And when you're a company like it, you can control your future because you have more power to be able to control the supply of high bandwidth memory. You can build the fastest GPUs in the world, but if you can't feed it the data fast enough, those GPUs just sit there. It doesn't matter how fast they are, because they're being underutilized, they're inefficient, they're bottlenecked. And right now, the supply of advanced HBM is one of the most constrained parts of the semiconductor ecosystem, which means that companies like Nvidia that control memory are quietly gaining power. And this is exactly where AMD is at a disadvantage in today's market. Not because their chips aren't competitive, but because they don't fully control the ecosystem around them. And that makes this partnership between AMD and Samsung so interesting to the marketplace. And it has evolved from this simple licensing agreement that they've had already in place to a massive multi-front strategic alliance. As of last week, this partnership right now that we see between AMD and Samsung has become potentially one of the most critical relationships in the semiconductor industry. It spans everything from mobile graphics, AI memory, and advanced foundry manufacturing. So if we just zoom in a little bit on the AMD side of it, because this is part of the deal that I think most people don't realize how much it matters to the marketplace. Over the last few years, AMD has made massive progress in AI. Their Instinct GPUs are improving. The EPYC CPUs are gaining traction in the data center, and hyperscalers are starting to take them more seriously. But there has been a structural limitation. AMD is heavily dependent on external partners, especially when it comes to memory and manufacturing. On the manufacturing side, they are almost exclusively reliant on TSMC. On the memory side, they have a lot less control compared to a company like Nvidia that has built extremely tight relationships and entrenched themselves into suppliers like SK Hynix. And that creates a subtle but very important problem for AMD in the market, because in this constrained environment, supply equals power. And if you don't control supply, you don't control your scale. You control scale. And if you can't control scale, you don't control your destiny in the marketplace right now. You don't control your destiny in a world that is growing this fast. So even if AMD builds outstanding GPUs, which they do, they can still be limited by memory availability, packaging constraints, supply chain dependencies. And this is where the partnership means so much. This is where it becomes more than just a headline. It becomes and starts to shift to a potential power shift and a partnership that can mean significantly more to the AI trade. So let's talk about exactly what happened in this memorandum of understanding, because we know that AMD and Samsung have already had a relationship. So these companies have worked together. They work together in mobile graphics, specifically the RDNA architecture. So Samsung licenses AMD's RDNA architecture for their Exynos smartphone processors. This brought ray tracing and desktop class gaming features to mobile devices. The latest Exynos 2600 uses AMD's RDNA 4 architecture. So that relationship was already in place. But what we're seeing now with the memorandum of understanding is they're shifting. This is the second pillar of the relationship, we'll call it. It's focused on AI infrastructure, particularly around HBM4 and DDR5. So in this partnership that the company signed, Samsung will be the primary supplier of HBM4 for AMD's next generation, their Instinct MI455X. It's their AI GPU. They're also going to co-develop an optimized DDR5 memory for AMD's 6th generation EPYC Venice, their CPU for servers. So by securing HBM memory for AI's future, it is a critical move for them. It's a critical move for their AI accelerators, because we know, as I mentioned, HBM isn't just another component. It is the fuel that powers AI workloads. Without it, these systems don't operate efficiently. So by securing this from Samsung, AMD is doing something very strategic. They are eliminating or reducing one of their biggest risks right now overall, and one of their most competitive disadvantages when it compares to Nvidia. And then the most interesting part of the deal, really, that I don't think has got enough headlines, is the foundry leverage. What Samsung is doing as part of this partnership, which I think is incredibly smart. Samsung is starting to leverage their HBM4. They're leveraging that supply they have to convince AMD to move some of their chip production to the Samsung foundry. The potential for Samsung to act as a manufacturing partner to AMD is huge. It's not fully locked in yet, I will say, just in full transparency. I've seen headlines. We need to confirm this still overall. If you have seen confirmation, drop it in the comments below. But the fact that it's even on the table matters significantly. And it's a huge signal in the marketplace, because this is the first time that AMD is signaling that they may not want to be entirely dependent on TSMC. For years, AMD has been a TSMC-only shop for its high-end chips. But the memorandum of understanding now specifically mentions foundry collaboration. So moving to Samsung's foundry is a risk for AMD, but it is a necessary one for this company to take. If they stay 100% reliant on TSMC, they have to continue to compete with companies like Apple and Nvidia for the same limited capacity. But by moving to Samsung, they get the VIP status that they need, and they're going to get that VIP status at one of the world's largest foundries. So that changes the conversation overall for both companies, quite frankly, because now we're not talking about just memory supply. We're talking about supply chain diversification. We're talking about leverage in the marketplace for AMD. And we're talking about the early stages of something that looks a lot like an ecosystem building between these two companies. And I think this is a piece of the story that could get missed if we don't slow down and focus on it, because this isn't only about AMD securing components. This is AMD trying to close the gap with Nvidia, not close the gap at the chip level, but close it at the system level. Nvidia's real advantage, like we showed earlier, it's not just their hardware. Their advantage is the fact that they own the ecosystem or have their control over the ecosystem, that everything works together seamlessly. Compute, memory, software, networking, all integrated into a single optimized platform. That's what makes Nvidia so hard to compete with and makes them so hard for companies to leave. But what AMD is doing here in this memorandum of understanding or this partnership is they're working to build toward that same model, but they're doing it through a partnership instead of vertical integration. Let's take a look at what this partnership can potentially mean overall. So I've got this picture I want to show. You can see here on the screen. So we're looking at Samsung and Nvidia and what they bring to the partnership. You can clearly see on the left with Samsung, they're going to bring memory, potential manufacturing, advanced packaging capabilities. They're merging together in the middle. You see that strong partnership, those puzzle pieces coming together. AMD is bringing compute, platform architecture, and growing data center relationships. And together, guys, they are building a partnership that has potential to be so much more, has the potential to be more powerful than either company on its own. Not equal to Nvidia yet. We have to keep that in mind. It's not anywhere near Nvidia's power and the control over the ecosystem, but it's growing. It's moving in that direction. And that's where the tension comes into the marketplace, because currently right now, the market is still pricing Nvidia like it is an unchallenged leader. But with moves like we're seeing in the marketplace right now, and moves with this AMD and Samsung's partnership, the memorandum of understanding, it starts to suggest that the competitive landscape is just starting to evolve, that it may not be the way we see it today in the months, in the years ahead. So if we think about the deal, we have to ask, and I always wonder, I'm curious, who do you think won the deal? Who's this deal more important for overall? And on the surface, this helps AMD out big time. They get access to what they need. What is the biggest constraint? HBM4. They get more supply chain flexibility, and they get a stronger position in AI infrastructure. But if you step back and look at the deals overall, you can make the argument that Samsung benefits even more. This deal gives Samsung's foundry an opportunity to lure a marquee customer away from TSMC. By working the way they have and tying their HBM4 supply to foundry orders, Samsung has finally now forced a major player like AMD to validate its advanced nodes. And this will give Samsung the opportunity or the credibility in the marketplace to show that they can take care of big marquee customers like AMD, and it'll give them the credibility to approach other customers like OpenAI and Meta. It also, when you look at AMD, it potentially makes them the only company in the marketplace that has the total stack. CPUs, GPUs, networking, and now a direct line to one of the world's largest memory and foundry houses. Nvidia still has to buy their memory from SK Hynix and then their wafers from TSMC. Samsung and AMD together right now are moving towards a vertically integrated mega company structure. And there's a few scenarios I want to look at that could play out for this deal. So let's pull up that picture overall, and I want to show that to you next. So these are the scenarios that I'm looking at from base case out to wild card scenario. So base case is simple. The partnership simply strengthens AMD's ability to compete. They secure memory supply, they improve system integration, and they continue to slowly take share in the AI infrastructure space. If we move to the bullish case in the middle, this partnership could evolve into a deeper ecosystem play where AMD and Samsung begin to co-optimize memory, compute, and manufacturing in a way that meaningfully challenges NVIDIA's dominance at the system level. And then finally, on the far right, the wildcard scenario. This is a scenario where Samsung successfully reestablishes itself, not just in memory, but in advanced manufacturing. If that happens and AMD becomes a meaningful customer, you start to introduce real competition to TSMC as well. And so we're not just looking at a shift in AI competition potentially. You're looking at a shift in the entire semiconductor power structure. And that's where it gets really interesting overall. And we're already starting to see some early signs of that shift. I don't know if you guys saw the article earlier today, it just came out, showed that a Korean AI company, Upstart, is now in talks with AMD to buy 10,000 of their accelerators. Not because Nvidia isn't good enough. They have plenty of Nvidia. They're an Nvidia customer right now. But when they came out in their article, they said that they're making this move because they don't want to rely on a single supplier anymore. Now, this doesn't mean that Nvidia is losing dominance overnight, by no means at all. But it does suggest that there's something important starting to change in the marketplace right now. And AMD is starting to become a bigger player, getting more credibility in the street. You're starting to see other companies shift away from not wanting a single supplier within their supply chain. So guys, in closing, I would say the AI race, as we mentioned in the beginning, isn't about building the fastest GPU or fastest chip. It's about controlling the ecosystem or controlling the environment or system that chip operates in. And what we're starting to see in the marketplace right now, quietly right now, but very clearly, we're starting to see that more companies are beginning to understand that as well. AMD isn't trying to beat Nvidia overnight, but they are building the pieces they need to compete more effectively over time. And Samsung isn't just supplying memory. They're positioning themselves as a core part of the next generation of AI infrastructure. So the real question for me isn't whether this partnership matters, because I think it does matter. It's whether this is the first step in breaking Nvidia's monopoly or Nvidia's grip on the AI stack. And if it is, then what we're seeing right now in the marketplace might just be the beginning of a much bigger shift in the AI trade or in the AI demand in the market. Let me know your thoughts, guys. Drop your comments below. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you in the next one.